Hi everybody, I've gone through and I've graded your summary responses, and I just wanted to address some of the common issues or common things that I found in your responses. Um, so I can explain fuller why things were crossed out or what I meant when I said something. The first thing that I want to mention is make sure that you follow directions. If you're asked to answer in complete sentences or with complete sentences, make sure you give me complete sentences, not fragments or one word phrases. The first thing I noticed was the when writing a summary and or response, you always want to introduce the title of the author, the title of the article, and the name of the author because it signals that you're giving credit to the author for the ideas that you're summarizing because they're not yours, they're hers in this case, Kathleen Fitzpatrick's in this case. When you introduce the author, you always want to provide her first name and last name initially. And afterwards, I'll come back to that in a second. And titles of articles are not italicized, they are in quotation marks. So think about it this way. Small things like articles or parts of bigger texts like journals or like articles in magazines, articles in journals, they're always going to be in quotation marks because um, they are a part of a larger journal or a larger work. Like this article comes from the Chronicle of Education, the Chronicle of Higher Education. So it's a piece of that larger text. Standalone pieces like novels, books, movies, whatever, things that stand on their own are things that are italicized. When you reference the author, first you want to make sure that you have the appropriate gender. Kathleen Fitzpatrick is a woman, so you would call her she, not he or the like. And then you always want to make sure that you refer to the author. If you're not referring to her by first and last name, you want to refer to her by last name, never first name only. You think about it this way. Referring to the author by his or her last name is a sign of respect. It shows that they are an authority. You don't come up to me and say, "Yo, Nikki, what's up?" because we don't have that kind of relationship. So you always want to refer to the author by the last name as a sign of respect for their position and their authority. Um, Another thing that I want to mention, I think sometimes that writing in the second person you or using the second person pronoun you is it's a habit for all of us. Um, but when writing academically, it doesn't cater to the use of the second person you because it creates an inappropriate relationship between the author and the audience. So, for example, if I said, you should stop writing stupid stuff on Twitter, I'm making an assumption about my audience that may or may not be true because it implies that you do indeed have a Twitter account. Um, which is not necessarily the case. I've done all sorts of terrible things according to you guys on Twitter, and I don't have a Twitter account. Or if you look at it like you should quit smoking, well, that assumes that your reader smokes. Instead, you want to word around that second person you and put it in the third person, like they, the reader, the viewer. Smokers should quit smoking. Social media users should blah, blah, blah. So avoid the use of the second person you because like I said, it creates that inappropriate relationship between the author and the audience, but it also has a tendency of creating these sneaky grammatical issues with subject object agreement. Um, be specific. when you're writing. And what I mean by that is you want to avoid vague pronouns like this, it, things like that. Be clear with your writing. Clarify your ideas and make sure that you like if you say something, take the time to explain what you mean, which brings me to my next point of development. And part of academic writing, and I think I mentioned this in the first week, is explaining why your reader should care about the topic at hand. So what? Why is it important? What's the significance? You really want to take the time to explain or draw those clear conclusions about the statements that you make. For example, Kathleen Fitzpatrick's article is not just about social media and the things that people say or don't say on Twitter. It's about more than that. There's something, she's really concerned about how social media has impacted our ability to communicate, that we're no longer open to receiving and or giving constructive feedback or constructive criticism. And so many times, like if you think about it, like think about it like this way: every time I write something on your paper, it's not something that's negative in some regards. It's meant to make you better. And because if you guys knew this stuff already, you wouldn't be in this class, right? So moving on back to my point, I kind of lost my rails, is that there's a larger, deeper message that Kathleen Fitzpatrick is getting at about our ability to communicate and have civil discussions, and where we don't attack the person, we look at an issue critically. And one more thing, be thoughtful. Some of you, I don't know if you read or if we read different articles, but if you're asked to read something, really take the time to read it and not gloss over it. Don't just read the first paragraph and the last paragraph and expect to try to fudge your way into a response. And I have one more point to make. Phrases you want to avoid like the plague. Things like I feel, I believe, in my opinion. I think I mentioned in week 1 when I talked about stance, academic writing wants an author to take a very authoritative stance. And if you look back to my example that I used with the Real Housewives in the stance section of last week's notes, you'll see what I mean. Like, obviously you feel the way that you feel, you believe what you believe. If you're writing it, you feel that way, but empty phrases like this really weaken your writing. And if you have a phrase like this or like this in front of an otherwise really thoughtful, poignant point that you're trying to make, this can cause your phrases like these can cause your reader to dismiss what you're saying because you put that tentative feel, believe, opinion in it. So you also want to avoid declarative phrases like I will do this, or predictive phrases like as we shall see, or something like that, because don't tell me what you're going to do, just do it. Don't tell me what you believe, just tell me. I hope that makes sense. So overall, though, I was really pleased with what everybody submitted and turned in. And the main comment, or the most common comment that I had to make throughout, was this idea of development. And that's something that you guys were going to work on all semester long. So just keep in the back of your mind, so what? Why does it matter? So check out your grades. If you go to your grade section in order to see all of my comments, because I wrote directly on the document that you turned in. I don't know if you'll be able to do it on your phone. or on the app, excuse me, but you'll have to go to your computer and click on it and then click on the thing that you submitted, and you should see my comments throughout there. So let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and good work, guys.